families tell their daughters to just put up and shut up. Why do they do that?
We put marriage at the peak. You're not settled till you're married. The Twisha Sharma case. All the characteristics that we say you will not face domestic violence, wrong.
At what point does a woman finally walk out?
When he decides to throw you out. Emotional violence, verbal violence, economic violence, all fall under domestic violence. And then finally she dies.
Divorce laws are pretty tough in India.
You want 10 lakhs, he's giving you 5 lakhs. That 5 lakhs you'll earn and it'll be your peace of mind. But where would you go?
So where do you go?
We have a helpline of the police called 103.
And does the police respond?
They have to respond within 10 to 15 minutes. Are they sensitive? I can't assure you.
How are those laws structured to support women?
Our laws are one of the best in the world. Nobody should accept violence. It comes from right to life. But who is there to implement it?
These women who walk out of their homes, where do they go? They go to shelters? How are those shelters?
They're so bad. The women think I'm better getting beaten up than staying here.
Oh my God. Hello and welcome to Beyond Pink. Today, we can look forward to an electrifying yet terrifying conversation with my guest, Audrey de Mello. Audrey is the director of Majlis, a legal aid center for victims of domestic violence, sexual abuse, and rape. Audrey's mother, the renowned women's rights activist and lawyer Flavia Agnes, was a victim of domestic violence many years ago, and that experience eventually laid the foundation for Majlis. Today, Majlis has helped over 1 lakh women and is known around the country for its work with female victims of violence. Audrey is a lawyer and took over the reins of Majlis from her mother almost 20 years ago. Many of us seem to think that domestic violence is very removed from us, right? It's for our staff or the lower classes or the uneducated or something like that. What do you think? Is domestic violence more widespread than we believe?
I've been working on domestic violence cases for the past 20 years. And as an organization, Majlis exclusively works on these two issues of domestic violence and sexual violence. Our understanding over these past years, and Majlis is even before that, so it's been working for 35 years. The UN statistics say 1 in 3.
Wow, 1 in 3?
Yes, but I would say it's 1 in 2.
Oh my God.
And why I'm saying that is because this is one of those crimes where nobody speaks about it.
True. Yeah.
You could be interacting with a neighbor and she would come out looking absolutely okay, chat with you, and you don't know what's happening behind closed doors. The reason why we think this happens in uneducated society or, lower class society is because their lives are on the street. Like your maid will come and speak to you because firstly, you're not from her community. She can tell you that this is happening.
Very important.
But in middle class households, girls are trained to hide this.
Yes.
You are trained from the beginning to say that now you're going to your husband's house. Please adjust. You have to make this marriage work. So it's almost like, that over age, this is going to get better. So now you accept and you tolerate. So I believe that domestic violence is happening in almost every home.
Oh, wow.
And it is different forms of domestic violence. If we talk about physical abuse,
yes,
I feel like, at least in the past 20 years, I feel to some extent there's a little fear about physical abuse.
Okay.
And maybe people don't, are not doing it the way they used to do it so blatantly before.
Sure.
But emotional violence, verbal violence, economic violence, these all fall under domestic violence. So the issue is very, very grave and very deep.
I mean, one thing you mentioned was that families tell their daughters to just put up and shut up, right?
Right.
But why do they do that? Why do they allow this to be inflicted? I mean, it's their own flesh and blood. How can they see this happening?
So I'm sure all of you are now aware of the Twisha Sharma case.
Of course, yes.
And it's really out in the public space. There's a lot of discussion about it. This is a 33-year-old girl. She was
Heartbreaking.
a Miss India, Miss
Yeah.
Pune. She was an MBA, so she was independent, working, capable of being
Yeah.
on her own.
Yeah.
She comes from a family which seems like they suppose she got married at 33.
Yeah.
And then she committed suicide within 6 months of marriage. And constantly in these 6 months, what we are hearing from the initial reports is she's asking her parents to take her back. And her family is telling her, try to adjust.
Oh my God.
I mean, I'm not even going into all the atrocities, the abuse that she had to face with her husband vis-a-vis her mother-in-law. But just think of her own family. In fact, I wrote an article about it which just says how we are ingraining in our young girls that you could be anything. You could be as successful, you could be as educated, you could be earning what you can. All the characteristics that
Yeah.
we say you will not face domestic violence.
Yeah.
But we put marriage at the peak. You're not
That's
settled
true.
till you're married.
Absolutely. Oh my God. I can testify to that personally.
And even as mothers, we are constantly thinking that, our child is not married and that's like a fault of ours, that there's
Yeah.
something wrong.
Yeah.
So girls are brought up thinking that, all this is fine. You need to get married. And once you get married, you have to stay married. Because if this marriage breaks, you will be looked at as a failure. And so, firstly, you're desperate to get married, and then you have to tolerate everything just to stay married. And in any situation, power works like that, right?
Yes.
When you know she's not going to do anything, then you can inflict more abuse on her, because what is she going to do?
Yeah. But is there no option of just breaking off and sort of striking your own path?
There's definitely that option. There's always that option.
But why don't women do it then?
Because being single is very hard.
Okay.
Society makes you feel you are alienated. In social gatherings, you're looked at as an outcast. She's a divorcee.
She's a divorcee.
And the fact is that this society is very fearful of single women.
Very important.
Everyone
Very
should be
important.
under somebody's control. Every
Yes.
woman should be under somebody's control.
Yes.
Either your father has to control you, or your husband has to control you, and later your son has to control you.
Yes. Yes.
So we are very fearful of single women and what they're capable of.
yeah.
And single women have shared that it's really difficult. It's difficult when we all want to live in society. We all want to be accepted by society. We want to be part of society. And when you are put out, you don't want to be that person. And so you just stay.
Yeah.
You just stay in the hope that this will get better. And, there will be somebody else who will come, a daughter-in-law maybe, who then I can, be dominating over. And that's how this cycle continues.
Perpetuates.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's such a tough world because every word that you said resonated with me, that at what point does a woman finally crumble? I mean, finally either give up or walk out or just stay all their lives in this agony.
I'm telling
Yeah.
you, I have people who come to me, women who come to me after their children are married. And they share with me that I have faced domestic violence my whole life.
Oh my God.
But I had to keep this going because nobody would marry my children. Because there's a whole custom involving, who will give away the child in Hindus, in
Yeah.
different communities.
Yeah.
So I have to keep this facade till they get married, and now I can do something.
Imagine that.
Imagine that.
And divorce laws are pretty tough in India. I mean, getting alimony, getting child support, it all sounds very complicated.
It is. Property rights. The other day I was telling I was with a group of social workers, and we were talking about rights in marriage. And everyone has this belief that I have property rights in marriage. And I had to break their hearts and tell them, you have no property rights in marriage.
Is that right?
That is right. That is
Okay.
also sad because you, as a young girl at your home, you're told, this is not your home. You get married, that's your home.
Absolutely.
But that's your home. But he's also saying, this is not your home. You are just here till I allow you to be here. Right? And yes, you have a right to residence. You can stay in your the married home. You have a right to maintenance. But you can't claim rights in property.
Oh.
You don't naturally get property rights. It's only when your husband passes away, then you inherit those rights. But it's not like I'm leaving, so I get half your property. Many countries have, property rights in marriage. Our country doesn't have it.
Why not? Why not?
Because we barely gave Hindu women rights to property in 1955. Till 1955, a Hindu woman didn't even have a right to divorce, nor she had rights to property.
Okay.
And after we got rights to property, it took us till 2005 for her to get inheritance rights in the larger family property. But because men control both the laws and society, it's not easy to get these laws passed. I mean, even the fact that she gets maintenance rights, you see there's so much discourse about, oh, she's a gold digger and she's claiming her maintenance rights. And why does she want maintenance? Can't she, do things on her own?
Yeah.
Without realizing how women come into homes, how much they give into homes.
Yeah.
I always say if a man is going to work in the morning, then there's either a mother or a wife who has done everything so that he can reach on time.
Yeah.
Right from washing his clothes to cooking his meal to taking care of all his needs, that he can go home and relax.
Yeah.
But what is that? She has no income for that labor.
Correct. Where do you go when you cannot remain in that marriage? How
When
do
he
you...
decides to throw you out.
Or he decides to throw
Or
you...
one fine day he feels you're not attractive enough.
Yeah.
And he now likes somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you're done with the abuse and you want to walk out.
Yeah.
But where would you go?
So where do you go? Nowhere.
You go. So here's the thing. My theory is that the reason women are dying in their homes, in their marital homes, is because there's no support from their natal family.
Yeah.
So natal family raises you to say, get married. Right? They're happy to pay dowry for that marriage. Right? And in their mind, now you're gone. You come, visit and leave. Don't come and stay here.
Correct.
Yeah, because by that time, the sons of the house have got married. They have their family. They have their children. There's no space for her.
There's an ecosystem which is now...
Developed. They've all worked it out.
Yeah.
If she comes, imagine she's going to come with her 3 children.
Yeah.
And there's no space for her.
Yeah.
So you keep sending her back. No, adjust her. When we say society, what we mean is that we don't have space for you. And so she goes back again and again, even though she tells them that this is happening. And then finally she, dies. And when you study Supreme Court judgments, time and again, these women have come back and they've been sent back.
Yeah.
So women are failing, of course, because of their marital family abuse.
Yeah.
But it's because there's no support. And
The birth
wherever
family
there's
has abandoned them.
and wherever there's support, these women come out so well.
Absolutely.
So well. Because being single is not a problem. I mean, you can do everything. You're anyway doing everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just need some support. You need somebody to be kind, to say, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
And believe in what you're saying. And women can do wonders. I mean, we constantly are anyway doing it.
I mean, I have a story of my mother's staff. She's superb. She's a beautiful person, very pretty, 3 children, abusive husband, and had never worked. As usual, it is considered sort of not de rigueur to work. You are supposed to be at home and be a good homemaker. So she had never worked, but she's educated. And then left the home with her children, walked out and set up her own. And she lived in a good apartment with all the amenities, the gadgets and everything. But she walked out of that and then she had to fend for herself. So she had nothing. And then she began working. But she was so happy. And her children were so happy. Because finally she was like enslaved to a violent and difficult addict, drug addict, who had banned them from going out, banned them from, even seeing a movie in a movie theater. She had never in her married life gone for a movie, and she had been married 20 years. And when she left him, she would take her children out, take them to the beach, take them to a restaurant, take them shopping. They were just happy. Though her physical situation was very difficult, but mentally, everybody at peace.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is what I tell all my clients. I say that a lot of them tell me we are doing this for our children. What did they do wrong? They need a father. What will people say about them, that they are from a broken home? And I have to tell them that a happy home is what you should be focusing on. That's not broken, because every day when they see this abuse, they're learning it, they're internalizing it, they're becoming anxious about it, and it's going to affect them.
Yes.
So take that decision, and it's tough. It's really a struggle. But if you believe in yourself, there are enough people who will support you. Maybe your family doesn't, but there are enough people who will support you, and you'll just need that much. So, but convincing them about that is very tough, because they feel they're letting their children down.
So how does one navigate this whole situation? What are the things? So Majlis, of course, helps with counseling and what else?
So our theory is transforming victims into survivors.
Wonderful. Yes.
And I love that line because, yes, I'm a victim and I want to become a survivor, but there's a lot of work that has to be done in between. I can't just get up one day and be a survivor. I'll fail. And
how do you mean?
Because everything has to work out, right? Like you said, when this woman walked out of the house, where will she stay? She decided 20 years she's walking out, let's say in her mind.
Yeah.
But then come the real questions, right? Where will you stay? Where will your children study? What will they eat? What will you eat tomorrow? Okay, maybe later I'll get a job. Then I have not worked for 20 years. I need to upskill. I need to go back into the workspace. If I have small children, then how will I cope with all that? So these are very practical things that are going on in your head. And when there are too many of those, you can't think, so you stop thinking.
You stop.
Right? So you need somebody to hold your hand, to work this out with you, to plan this out with you. Yes, you have rights vis-a-vis your husband. Yes, we'll file that case. Everyone says the law is there, but the law is not coming to your plate. You have to go to the law. You have to make an application. You have to wait your turn. When the judge has the time to look at your case, then they will hear it. They will hear the other side. And then finally, after so many years, you'll get some maintenance. But till then, law is not giving it to you immediately. So planning this with them, working it out with them, one by one. So at Majlis, we have the legal support. So we can assure them that actually they come to us for that. Because they've had enough and they're like, oh, we want to file a case.
Okay.
But they don't know what it means. They think, now I've tolerated this violence for so long, I should immediately get the order.
Yeah.
Because that's what the serials are showing you.
Yeah.
There's a possibility that you can stay in the same house and still be protected.
Okay. And how does that work?
For example, let's take this husband who's the example you gave. He's torturing them, abusing them. He's like, because he's an addict, he's doing other things which are. So we have a helpline of the police called 103.
Okay.
It's a women helpline. Okay.
Yes.
Once you get out of your mind that I don't need to hide this, it's not me who's doing it, it's him. And once you're not afraid about what the society is thinking, you can call 103 every time he's harassing y'all. And he's believing that you will not do it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So he's doing it. The moment a third party comes in, he's scared. Because he's not this really all powerful. He's only powerful vis-a-vis her. So the police comes to your place, warns him, files an NC if required. And slowly, she's able to create a space in that same house without him interacting with her. But let's say she wants to leave. Then we plan her shelter. We plan like how will her children go to school. We try to get donors for her children's education. So depending, every woman has different needs.
Sure.
If your family is
Sure.
supporting, your needs are limited.
Yeah.
If you're completely on your own, your needs are limited.
Yeah.
In fact, yesterday a 20-year-old girl has walked into our office barefoot. With her parents have even taken her phone.
Oh my God.
And luckily she had done a consultation with us a few days before, and we told her, you keep your documents safely, because she was talking about them forcing her to get married. So she kept her documents on our advice, and then that night they were going to take her to the village to get her married. And so in the morning she runs away from home and comes to our office doorstep with nothing except those documents which are with her friend. So imagine the level of planning you have to do. You have to inform the police that she's left, otherwise
Yeah.
they'll file a missing complaint,
Yeah.
find a shelter for her. She wants to continue her education. How will that happen? It's like you have to be her support,
Yeah. You have to be her family.
her family. And sometimes you think, oh, they'll be fully dependent on me. It's not like that. They just need to know you're there. They also can think for themselves, and they also, want to do things.
Yeah.
Just create that space,
Right.
and it's possible.
And does the police respond on this 103? Are they sensitized now to say anytime a call comes, we know that we have to be there instantly?
I think for the women of this show, I would really like to say,
Yeah.
and over the years, at least in Bombay,
Uh-huh.
we have worked on the police so much. It's a recorded message, so it's evidence, and they have to respond within 10 to 15 minutes. So if
Wow.
you see now, they have got cars, we
Yeah.
have women police officers. A lot
Yeah.
of work has happened.
Yeah.
But I can assure you, if you call, in under 10 minutes, they will reach your home.
Fantastic.
Are they sensitive? I can't assure you. Will they say like, "Arey, this is family matter. Why are you calling us?"
Do they say that?
Of course they say that.
Huh.
Of course they say that.
So then-
And don't trouble us.
So then?
But you have to keep calling. You have to keep calling
Okay.
because it's your right. You have a right to live a life free of violence. That's your constitutional right.
Yes.
As a citizen,
Yes.
nobody can commit violence on you. It's not like,
Yeah.
doesn't matter if your
Yeah.
father, mother, brother, husband, doesn't matter.
No.
Both men and women.
Yeah.
Nobody should commit any act of violence on you.
Correct.
That's your right.
Yeah.
So you keep calling.
Do you do a lot of work with the police about this? Is it an ongoing process of sensitizing them?
I do a lot of work with police.
Okay.
We had this big case called the Nirbhaya case.
Yes.
Right?
2012.
2012. And after that, some interesting thing happened in the law. We got the criminal law amendment because there was a lot of backlash after Nirbhaya on the police. So the law changed, and police were really struggling to see how they could, what should they do in this situation. So I remember way back, we worked very closely with the Commissioner of Police, and we did very structured training. I won't call them sensitive training. They were role training.
What is role training?
Police were getting mixed up with their social worker
Yeah.
mindset
Yeah.
or their patriarchy,
Yeah.
patriarchal
Because they are part of
responses.
society.
Yeah.
They are part of society.
And their role as police.
Yeah.
And we had to break that. We had to say, when you're in your home, all that is fine. Because they would say things like, ma'am, marriage toot jayega to kya hoga? Isse shaadi kaun karega? Those kind of comments. And we had to tell you that
That's
if
not
you
your
want to do
remit.
social work, you go
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Here you read the law
Yeah.
and you follow the law. If a woman comes, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to record an FIR. This is what you need to do in investigation. So we did a lot of that work of accountability. So we trained, and then because we were doing casework, we were observing the police. And then we would take up these issues with the commissioner because the training had come from the commissioner.
Correct.
So we said we'll train, and I have trained so many police officers. It's not funny.
And are they officers or are they also constables and
Constables se
Beat
leke
police.
investigating officers to senior police officers. We've trained everyone because their roles are different.
yeah.
We have one designation called the court carcoon. He's a police constable,
Huh.
but his work is to interact with court.
Yeah.
Now, nobody thinks about him, right? He's just the runner. But he's the key person. And when our victims go to court, he is the person who's going to receive them or, take them to the courtroom or protect them while they're waiting. And nobody has bothered to train him. So we've done like special training on role of court Karkun. What do you need to do in terms of documentation, in terms of support to victims? So lots of training. And it's been very satisfying, really
Okay.
very satisfying. I have seen like a sea change.
Yeah.
I won't say it's like all hunky-dory.
No.
No.
But to see that change itself is so heartening.
It's a big change.
How are those laws structured to support women?
Our laws are one of the best in the world.
Wonderful. Wonderful. But I hear a but.
No, but they're really the best.
Yeah.
Starting with our constitution. And I really feel really bad that, ordinary citizens don't know their constitutional rights.
Absolutely.
Nothing. You're taught
Yeah.
in 8th standard.
Not
in a
even
civic class.
I know that.
Nobody
Nothing much
remembers
is
it.
taught. Yeah.
And we are singing the national anthem every time we watch a movie, which is nice. But do you know your constitution? Has anyone read the preamble? Each word in the preamble, and we have to pay our respects to Dr.
Yeah.
Babasaheb Ambedkar for giving us this constitution.
Absolutely.
It is the best constitution in the world.
Absolutely.
And
I believe that.
You will be so strong if you internalize it. It takes care of people, scheduled caste, all the issues Dalit people are facing, labor issues, women issues, old age issues. I mean, you're protected so
Article
beautifully.
21.
Yes. Like you have, and it's such a flexible yet rigid constitution where, you have checks and balances.
Yes.
But no citizen should feel like I don't have rights. And yet every day, every time you hear about how people are sharing they don't have rights.
Yes.
And we are accepting anything. The potholes on the road, the fact that our schools and hospitals don't work. This is our constitutional right. So the preamble, our constitutional rights, starting from there, where I say that nobody should take violence. Nobody should accept violence. It comes from right to life.
Yes.
And right to life means so many things.
Yeah.
And then from there, if you look at our laws, whether it's the criminal law, whether it's the civil laws, I think we have everything.
Okay.
Everything.
Okay.
But who is there to implement it?
Right.
Now, we are working on women and children issues. And when Majlis started, so Flavia Agnes is the founder of
Yes.
Majlis. And she had her own case.
Yes.
Where the belief was that, okay, the laws are here, I will go and fight for my rights. But suddenly you realize there is no lawyer to represent you because the male lawyer is coming from the same society and is telling you the same things. Go back, why are you doing this? Adjust.
My goodness.
So
My
she started this
goodness.
center, and we are an all-women team of lawyers, and we only do these cases. But how many such organizations are there?
How many are there?
Very few.
Very few.
Very few. You can count them on like your fingers.
Are there enough divorce lawyers who specialize in, family law and divorce? And do they have that? Do they carry that heft in court to work out these deals? What is the prevailing environment?
I think there are over 5,000-6,000 lawyers
Doing this?
doing this work.
Amazing.
But
That's a good thing.
that's a very good thing.
But yeah.
This is a profession. And according to me, this is one profession where there are no rate cards.
Absolutely.
They say
Yeah.
doctors and lawyers, white coat, black coat, but this court has no rate card. So you can charge from nothing to everything. And we've heard of some of the rates that lawyers are charging. So what happens is in these cases, women don't have money.
Yeah. That's why they are doing this.
They're doing this for maintenance,
Yeah.
but the lawyer wants money because that's their profession.
So it becomes a sort of catch-22.
So only husbands get lawyers. So who'll represent the women? So there are lawyers, but women have no money to pay. So then they have to settle for the free legal aid. So luckily in our country, like I said, we have amazing laws. One of the law is that any woman, doesn't matter your income level, any woman, child, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, can avail of a free legal aid lawyer in this country.
Okay.
And that's good.
Yeah, that is good.
But the problem is,
how good are those
how
lawyers?
good are those lawyers? Because they also want to build their practice. So they say that we'll be a free legal aid lawyer for some time. The moment they build their practice, they leave.
Yeah.
And they don't do these cases with the commitment. You know,
Yeah.
a paid lawyer, the way they would do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not like they are not getting money for it. They're being paid
By the court.
by the legal aid
by
services.
the legal
But they
but
don't
that would be a marginal
respect.
amount.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would not be sustained.
And then they don't respect that woman because they think of her as like, I'm doing a favor for you.
True.
So that's the problem. We need passionate pro bono lawyers. And I think there are enough, if one can imagine a scheme like that,
Yeah.
that they give some time towards this work.
How long does a divorce take?
So it's very easy to get married. It's not very easy to get divorced. The thinking or the condition is that let's try and make it work. So the courts are constantly trying to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how do they try to make it work? They try to send them for mediation,
Which could help also.
which is a good thing.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
the mediation is trying to do is, rather than have an antagonistic kind of, you said this, you
Yeah.
did this, and
Yeah.
then finally the court has to decide, they are hoping in mediation this matter will get settled,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's called a mutual consent divorce.
Right.
Those are the best divorces. In 6 months, you can be out.
Post mediation.
Yeah. We can also do it pre-filing.
Okay.
So let's say I'm your lawyer. You come to me. You say, I need these things. I need him to give me a house. I need him to give, money for the child.
Yeah.
Some basic things.
Yeah.
We call the other side and we present your points. Now, there are those good husbands, but if he was a good husband, why would you
Why
be
was he
divorcing
doing
him?
this? Yeah.
But let's assume. And maybe give or take, we have managed to work it out. So then we go to court with a mutual consent divorce saying we are not making any allegations on each other. We have arrived at our consent terms. Please grant us divorce. Those are the best divorces. No allegations, no long court dates. We file, we get one hearing. We tell the judge that, yes, I'm the person and, I agree to these terms. And then in 6 months, you get your divorce.
And these are the most frequent kinds?
We try.
Okay.
These are not, because lawyers will not make money on these cases. We need to show fat briefs, then go and shout in court, take some dates. So then the client feels, working so hard. So what they do is they don't push. Majlis pushes a lot for this. And we tell women, like, how long are you going to wait? But of course, if she needs money and he's not ready to give, then we have to file a contested. But in most cases, we try to, tell the woman also that take it and move on.
Right.
You want 10 lakhs, he's giving you 5 lakhs. That 5 lakhs you'll earn and it'll be your peace of mind.
Yeah.
So sometimes we do it. Sometimes women don't want to do that or they can't because they need that.
Yeah.
But other lawyers will file the case and then the judges keep sending you for mediation. So at some point later, maybe they can settle those terms and convert the petition to a mutual consent.
What is your view on, these women who walk out of their homes? Where do they go? They go to shelters? How are those shelters?
They're so bad.
Oh my God.
They're terrible.
Uh-huh.
In our country, the first time shelters were envisaged was that you're an orphan. You're, you don't know where your family is. You've been just discarded. It happens to a lot of old people. They're taken to certain temples and just left there on stations. So they're made like jails. So they're not given their mobile phones to use. They can't cook food of their choice. You have to eat the common food, the sleeping arrangements, all of that. But because they were abandoned, they had no choice. So they would live there.
Yeah.
Then the next kind of shelters came for trafficking cases.
Okay.
So it came in the law that if you rescue a trafficking victim, especially sex trafficking, you have to keep them in 15 days in confinement. So then they upped the protection. So it became really like jails.
Okay.
Like just like barricaded and like no space. Because the traffickers would try to contact them. So you have to keep them away and, safeguard them, but also ensure that, they
so
don't
protection means prison.
Now, domestic violence victims, shelters are built firstly far away.
Yeah.
and then they're put there and their life completely goes to. So the women think I'm better getting beaten up than staying here.
Staying here.
And then they won't allow the children to stay.
Oh, they won't allow the children. Where do the children go then?
So what happens is if you're a girl, you can stay.
Yes.
But there are other women there. So a boy above 7 is not kept.
Oh,
so then she has to
that's
leave the son back.
heartbreaking.
Yeah, and no mother is going to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So then she just goes back.
Oh.
So our shelters have not evolved to that level. Whereas in the West, they have concepts of a halfway home.
Yeah.
We're
yeah.
trying very hard with our government. I hope somebody is listening and will think about
Hope
it.
so, yeah.
Like we need halfway homes in
Yeah.
every locality.
But I must share with you, Audrey, that it sounds good, but every community, even overseas, resists having halfway homes. It's
Really?
very tough, but they don't want, that whole NIMBY, not in my backyard. That attitude that who knows who these people are.
Yeah.
Who knows what trauma they are bringing with them and what trauma they are spreading in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
I mean, halfway homes are much better than shelters.
Absolutely.
They
And they are the
are,
only solution. I'm
yeah.
genuinely telling you,
Yeah.
you want to solve the issue of domestic violence.
Yeah.
You want women to have this freedom that they can walk out.
Yeah.
You have to create spaces in each and every community.
Yeah.
And we have some good models. So Kerala has one model. It's called the Kudumbashri model.
Okay.
And they have these Asha workers
Uh-huh.
who keep women in their own homes. They've
Lovely.
created that model.
Lovely.
So,
beautiful.
she can walk out and there is somebody.
Ah.
But we have to push for it and we have to make it possible. In fact, the government has so many of these SRA schemes.
Yeah.
They can make it mandatory.
Yeah.
That one place is kept.
One place is, it's a good suggestion. I mean, I read Flavia's autobiography. You gave it to me, and in that she mentions how she could survive because somebody offered her a roof,
Absolutely.
their own home. But now that is gone.
Absolutely.
That support system is gone. Now everything is institutionalized.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do personal laws interfere with our, penal code in any way?
No practice can violate the constitutional right.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say a practice like sati,
Mm.
right? Somebody could say that's my personal belief and I'm willing, but it's violating a constitutional right, and then the government can shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, if you know, there's a very big case being argued on the Shabrimala temple access.
Yes.
Right? Which means that you cannot discriminate. We have no discrimination between men and women. So
Right.
how can you discriminate them from entering a
Yeah.
temple?
Yeah.
Right? But
But
they
there's
can
been
claim
a controversy about
it's still
that.
going on.
It's
We'll
still going
see.
on. Yeah.
I mean, the judges initially allowed entry, and now there's another conversation about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But we had the Hajji Ali Dargah, and they
Yeah,
allowed women entry.
yeah.
So, for us, always remember. I mean, every woman and man should remember that you may be any religion, and our country allows you to practice your religion in your personal space. As a country, we have no religion. As a country, we only have the constitution. And that is why the way you know your religion, you need to understand the constitution. We've not come out of that mindset to think, we the people of India.
Why can't we question this?
And because we elect this parliament,
Yeah,
right? They work
yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
The police works for me.
Do you do sensitivity training for the police that, when you are called in such cases, you have to not wear your authoritarian mask and go in with a little bit of compassion? Do you do that?
If you hear the police, they will start telling you about how tough their job is, how many things how long a duty they have done. So everyone has their own opinion. But I would prefer to educate citizens about their rights.
Okay.
So if you know your right, they hope that you will not know your rights.
Absolutely.
And so with Majlis, they will never ever argue with us because
Yeah.
we will quote the law, we will insist, we will refuse, and we will stand our ground.
Yeah.
And they know this is a lawyer, you can't mess, this is
Yeah.
Majlis, they know their law.
Yeah.
We need citizens to have that power.
Yeah.
That I know my rights. You cannot arrest me after 6 p.m. as a woman. You should know your rights.
Yeah.
If I come to you with a complaint, you are mandated to record an FIR.
Right. Which they don't, by the way.
Which they don't.
Yeah.
And then we have to educate women that if they don't, what to do?
Yeah.
Where do you go to?
Yeah.
We have the commissioner of police every Tuesday in Mumbai. He sits and receives people's complaints.
But he must be getting absolutely swamped with.
He doesn't. Nobody's going.
Okay. Wow.
That's what I'm saying. And then they say, when we do it for domestic violence cases, in 2 days, she will come and say, don't arrest my husband. Usko
She's
chhod
gone
do.
back, हाँ.
She's gone back. Parents have pushed her back. Now they're saying, then she comes and she'll cry. And then it's like, now you can't take back the case
हाँ.
because it's a criminal case.
हाँ.
So that's the problem.
Yeah. So it's a little bit at a time.
Yes.
Chipping away at this whole structure one day at a time.
Yeah, and I think shows like this, even if one person gets educated with
Yeah.
this information, she
Yeah.
will pass it on to other people.
Absolutely.
And that's how we will build this.
I mean, 103.
103.
103.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hello and namaste. I hope you've been watching these conversations that I have brought to you with some very remarkable women in our country. The conversations, as you know, are about anything and everything that matters to a woman, and then, of course, by corollary, to society. If you are enjoying these conversations, do please like, share, subscribe so that others in your circle can also enjoy them. Thank you. Keep watching.